Under the reign of Manhattan, a young woman carries secrets capable of shaking a financial empire. Behind closed doors, memories of sacrifice and the courage to stand firm, she discovers that some keys unlock more than just rooms. They can change entire destinies. Rachel Collins hurried along Broadway that rainy Monday morning. Persistent raindrops formed small puddles on the busy sidewalks of the financial district. Her medium-heeled shoes, bought on sale 3 years earlier, already showed signs of wear and were now soaked, but that was the least of her concerns. In her synthetic leather briefcase, a graduation gift from her mother, she carried documents that could change the future of Archer & Cole, one of Wall Street's most powerful firms. Spreadsheets, printed emails, and charts revealed a manipulation scheme that could not only bring down the company but also destroy the trust of thousands of investors. Rachel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what she was about to do. Ever since she had secured her position as a trader 3 years ago, she had faced suspicious looks, veiled jokes, and constant questioning of her abilities. At 29 years old, she was one of the few women in that male-dominated environment and often heard in the corridors that she was only there because they needed diversity on the team. When she reached the imposing glass and steel building, her distorted reflection in the facade seemed to represent how she felt, small in the face of the magnitude of what she was confronting. Nonetheless, she straightened her posture. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Keep your head up, Rachel. Dignity is the one key that no one can take away from you." Elizabeth Collins had been a skilled seamstress, raising her daughter alone after her father left when Rachel was just 5 years old. They lived in a small apartment in the suburbs, where the noise of the sewing machine often lulled the girl to sleep during her study nights. Every morning, Elizabeth repeated the same ritual. She prepared a simple coffee, packed her daughter's lunch in a colorful lunchbox, and said, "Study as if your future depends on it because it does." When Rachel earned a scholarship to study economics, Elizabeth cried with pride. When she landed her first internship at an investment firm, her mother sewed her a perfectly tailored black blazer, saving for months to buy the right fabric. And when Elizabeth passed away after a silent battle with cancer, Rachel was only 19 and had made a promise by the hospital bed. "I will show the world that we can succeed without losing our essence, Mom." Now, standing at the main entrance of Archer & Cole, Rachel tried to pass through the electronic turnstile. Her heart raced as the red light flashed. She tried again, sliding the badge more carefully. The digital notice left no doubt. "Access denied." "There must be some mistake," she said to the security guard, her voice tight with nervousness. Henry Walker, the 58-year-old man sitting behind the security desk, watched her intently. His straight posture and keen gaze revealed his military past. The wrinkles around his eyes and the gray hair at his temples told stories of a life Rachel could only imagine. "Miss Collins, your access was deactivated this morning." "Internal orders," explained Henry, with an expression that combined regret and understanding. Rachel felt her legs weaken. The chill in her stomach wasn't just from the rain soaking her clothes, but from the realization they knew. Somehow, Mark Dempsey, the company director, had discovered that she had gathered evidence against him. In recent months, Rachel had noticed discrepancies in financial reports. Working late while her colleagues celebrated at expensive bars, she spotted suspicious patterns in specific transactions. The more she investigated, the clearer it became. Mark Dempsey was manipulating the company's asset values, artificially inflating numbers to attract investors and boost bonuses. 2 executives passed by reception at that moment, and Rachel recognized Brad and Steven, department colleagues who constantly downplayed her contributions in meetings. They noticed her standing at the entrance, with her useless badge in hand, and exchanged mocking smiles. "See that? She lasted less than we expected," Brad commented loudly enough for her to hear. Rachel's cheeks burned with humiliation. She felt the familiar lump in her throat, the one that had been there since childhood when she was excluded by classmates for wearing secondhand clothes. For a moment, she considered giving up. Maybe this was the sign that Wall Street wasn't her place, that she had dreamed too big. Henry watched the scene intently, noticing the almost imperceptible tremble in Rachel's lips. He recognized that look of someone facing injustice. Over 10 years as a security guard in that building, he had become invisible to most executives, but this had given him the privilege of observing the true characters that came in and out of those doors. He remembered Rachel well. While others barely waved as they passed by, she always greeted him by name. On nights when he stayed late, she often went down to get coffee and brought one for him too. Small gestures that revealed a lot about a person. Henry also noticed how Mark Dempsey treated low-level employees. The contrast between the charismatic smile he showed to clients and the calculated coldness with which he addressed his subordinates said a lot about his character. "Miss Collins," Henry called, lowering his voice and approaching the counter. Sometimes the doors that close reveal paths that no one else sees. Rachel stayed at him, perplexed by the enigmatic comment. Henry looked around, making sure no one was nearby, and pulled out a small silver keychain from his pocket, worn by time and use. "Use this," he said, extending the object. "What is this?" Rachel asked, hesitant. "A master key for the side entrances and service elevators." He paused, as if measuring his next words. "I don't usually do this, but I know you have something important to do in there. I see you working night after night. I know when someone carries the truth on their shoulders." Rachel looked at the small key. It was a huge risk to accept. She could be accused of trespassing, lose her license as a trader, perhaps even face criminal charges. But there was something in Henry's eyes that conveyed not just confidence, but genuine faith. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. The security guard adjusted his posture, his eyes revealing distant memories. "When I served in the army, I learned that sometimes the most important battles are fought by those who have less power, but more courage." He smiled slightly. "Besides, I have 3 daughters. I want them to live in a world where honesty still means something." With the master key secured in her hand, Rachel entered the building through a rarely used side entrance. Her heart was pounding, but each step seemed to be guided by something greater than her own courage. She thought of her mother, of her daily struggles, of the nights she saw her silently crying over overdue bills, but never giving up. Using service corridors and less frequented elevators, Rachel reached the 42nd floor, where the main meeting room was located. Through the glass of the door, she saw that the quarterly board meeting had already begun. Mark Dempsey, in his immaculate $5,000 suit, was speaking with his theatrical and confident tone. "Historic results for the firm that confirm our visionary strategy," he was saying, while impressive slides displayed upward trending graphs. "Our investors have never been more assured." Executives with satisfied expressions nodded and took notes. Rachel recognized among them some of the biggest names in the financial market. She took a deep breath, clutched the folder to her chest, and opened the door. An absolute silence filled the room. 20 pairs of eyes turned to her, mixing surprise, confusion, and, in Dempsey's case, barely contained rage. "What are you doing here?" he roared, recovering from the initial shock. "How did you get onto this floor?" "Security." Rachel kept her back straight, channeling all the dignity her mother had taught her. "Sure, here's the translated text. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I ask for just 5 minutes of your time." Her voice came out firmer than she expected. "What I have to show affects the future of this company and the confidence of every investor represented in this room." One of the older board members, intrigued by the young woman's determination, gestured for her to proceed. Mark tried to intervene, but was silenced by a glance from the chairman. "This is a private meeting, but I'm curious." 5 minutes, Miss Collins." Rachel Collins, from the Risk Analysis Department. With slightly trembling hands, Rachel opened her folder and distributed copies of the document she had gathered. These transactions from the past 8 months show a consistent pattern of asset manipulation. She pointed to a sequence of numbers. Values were artificially inflated by 22%. And in these reports, phantom operations were recorded to offset real losses. The room remained silent as the board members examined the documents. Mark Dempsey alternated between extreme pallor and a flush of fury. "This is absurd. This woman is clearly trying to sabotage my position out of resentment. She failed the last performance review and—" "Is this true, Mark?" interrupted the chairman of the board, a man with white hair and a piercing gaze, pointing to the highlighted figures. Dempsey stammered, trying to form a coherent explanation, but the damage was done. The looks that had once admired him now showed doubt and distrust. "I propose an immediate independent audit," suggested one of the board members, "and the temporary removal of Mr. Dempsey until the investigations are concluded." The proposal was quickly supported. Within minutes, security was called, but this time to escort Mark Dempsey out of the room. As he passed Rachel, he whispered through clenched teeth, "You just committed professional suicide." Rachel held his gaze. "Maybe, but I can look at myself in the mirror tomorrow." In the weeks that followed, a storm swept through Archer & Cole. The audit confirmed Rachel's findings, revealing even more irregularities. Mark Dempsey was formally charged with fraud and market manipulation. Some executives who supported him also fell. The company faced a crisis of confidence, but the transparency with which it handled the scandal gradually restored its reputation. As for Rachel, her position initially remained uncertain. Some saw her as a heroine, others as a whistleblower. She received mixed glances in the corridors and anonymous messages of both support and reproach. A month after the incident, she was called into the office of the new interim CEO. "Miss Collins, the company owes you an apology and gratitude," he said. "Your courage prevented an even greater disaster. I would like to offer you the position of Director of Compliance and Corporate Ethics. We need someone with your integrity." Rachel accepted, although she knew that the path would be challenging. Transforming the culture of a financial institution would require more than good intentions. That same day, upon leaving the building, she looked for Henry but found another security guard in his place. "Henry Walker," she asked the young man in uniform. "Is he off today?" Mr. Walker requested a transfer to another company building, miss. "He left last week." Rachel felt a pang of disappointment for not having had the chance to thank him properly. When she got home that night, she found a small package in her mailbox. Inside, there was a silver keychain with a master key and a handwritten note. "Miss Collins, this key has opened many doors in my life, but it was never used as well as the day I placed it in your hands. Keep it as a reminder that sometimes the true key is not the one that opens physical doors, but the courage that paves the way for change. Stay strong on your journey. It's not always the strongest or the wealthiest who change destiny. Sometimes, it's those who carry the truth and trust that God opens doors that others try to close." With admiration, Henry Walker. Rachel held the key against her chest, finally letting the tears fall. In her small apartment, on top of the dresser, there was a photo of her mother smiling beside the sewing machine. She looked at the image and whispered, "You were right, Mom. Dignity truly is the only key that no one can take from us." In the years that followed, Rachel transformed the ethics department of Archer & Cole into a market reference. She created mentoring programs for women in the financial sector and lectured on corporate integrity. The path was not easy. She faced resistance, prejudice, and attempts at sabotage. But every morning, before leaving the house, she would look at the silver keychain hanging by the door, remembering that true wealth lies not in power or money but in character and justice. And that sometimes the keys to transform the world appear in the most unlikely hands.